Well, thank you all very much for joining us today. My name is Charles Hughes. I'm with LSPN. I am the Business Development Director and have been working with the firm for about a year now. My focus today is a little bit, first of all, I should start this conversation out with an interesting thing. I normally do this presentation as a fast start for people that have just registered. And this morning, early, I was about to get on a plane and I wanted to send out the message to the people that just registered. And I accidentally pushed the button that said anybody that's registered in the past year. So we've got a collection of people. So I'm so glad to see it. So if you're wondering and scratching your head, it's like, well, this is Fast Start, but I've been here for 9 months. That's why. So let's go ahead. The next thing is, as I go through this, we'll talk about a collection of things. We will not go heavily into what an estate plan is or what it does or how it works with detail. Because frankly, as you as an agent, you should not be worrying about that. You should be able to pass that on to someone that's going to be helping you. That being an attorney or a financial consultant, or excuse me, a legal consultant on our side that can work with your clients. All you really need to know is understanding the importance of what estate planning is and where it fits with your clients and how to get them over to us. I will cover also the estate planning. So let's go ahead and jump in real quick. We're going to hit the slides. And the first thing that we need to learn as we start talking about estate planning is for LSPN and World Financial Group, we have a unique website. My email address comes up, charles@lspnpro. That is not the website. It's lspndirect.com. There's a big difference between the two. And the primary difference that you're going to worry about is that clients will pay about $200 more for our services if you go to LSPN Pro, because it works for smaller agencies. LSPN Direct, we work specifically with your team on this website. It's a much larger wholesale partnership. And so as a result, we can bring the cost down to that for your clients as well. So make sure LSPN Direct is going to be the primary way to go. The next thing we want to talk about for just a moment is the fact that when we talk about financial planning, there is financial planning, but then there's comprehensive financial planning. What most of you will typically do in a day's time when working with a client, you'll go through a financial needs analysis, you'll have a kitchen table presentation. I don't care what you call it because every hierarchy calls it a little bit different. It doesn't matter, but you'll talk about what's going on. You'll talk about the benefits to life insurance and where that is, the benefits to making sure that somebody's out of debt, that makes sure that you've got savings put aside, not only now for emergency funds, but also into the future. And these things are all really, really critical things. But the primary piece in what you're discussing in this conversation so far is life insurance. If I'm 25 and I'm starting out, Maria, and I'm having a conversation and I want to get to 80 or 90 years old or wherever I want to be in my lifetime, and I want to be able to pass a legacy on to my family, then that's going to be a critical thing. And life insurance will prevent the fact that if I don't get to that age, if I fall short of it because of an illness or because of an accident or whatever may come up, or because I've got a long-term illness and I can't care for myself, and so I've got to have some sort of benefit that I can take from the life insurance program, because you've got fantastic programs. That's where life insurance comes in. It takes care of the event before you get a chance to have your estate financially completely full. The other end of this estate planning, of the comprehensive financial planning, is estate planning. And that's the cap at the end. So many people miss this. And when they do, a variety of things can go awry. A number of ones can be just emotional. When we're dealing with the death of a loved one and we're working with things, my family, for example, I've got 4 siblings and myself. When my mother passed, there was a lot of tension in the air. We had an estate plan in place, and had we not had that in place, I promise you that now 20 years after my mother's passed away, we probably still would not be talking. But the fact was, there was an estate plan in place that gave us a map. It gave us a roadmap to say what to do with everything that was her. So there was no arguments, there wasn't challenges, there wasn't battles between family members. And so as a result, that was so important. And yet on the other hand, there's over 35% of people that have no estate plans find that families end up in massive family arguments. And it's not to do with the money. People say, oh, money breaks everybody up. It's truly not. What it is the emotion and the stress and the troubles that are going on all blow out because of that. So these are things that are important. And the estate plan and the estate planning process can prevent a lot of that from occurring. But the one that gets missed all the time is the fact that if we don't have things put together at the end, is we end up looking at a thing called probate. Now, a lot of people talk about probate. I worked in the insurance business for 5 years with a company that, we'll just say it, it was New York Life, years and years and years ago. I had no training, by the way. Nobody explained anything. I had a slide that showed up like this and talked about probate. I figured, well, I'm 32 years old. I better know what probate is, so I'm not going to ask that question. I'm embarrassed. And if you're sitting on this line right now and say, oh no, here we go again with this probate word, and I still don't know what it is, I'm going to give you a crash course. Probate is when the state locks and freezes everything that you have. This is your mortgage, it's your cash, it's your investments, it is everything that you own. And they freeze everything for a period of time in order for the books to be settled on your life. And it needs to be done before you can pass your assets on to the next generation. So the things that can come up, the IRS can come in and say, we want money from Charles because when he died, he owed us from last year. There can be business partners. Maria and I were business partners, and I owe her rent for the past 3 years because I was ill for the last 3 years of my life. So she comes and says, you know, Charles owed me money. Before you can give it to his family's generation, we need to make sure we settle our books too. Each of these things are claims, and they're claims against probate. Each one takes time. Each one costs money. There's, first of all, the fact that I have to write out that check out of the estate, but more importantly is that there's the process that's going to go into the court to have it reviewed, to have the family now represent on their side of the table with their lawyers. So as a result, we end up looking at about a 10% loss of what your estate is before you can pass that on. Now, in conservative perspective of what we talk about in life today, if I get to 80 or 90 years old, there's a good likelihood that I've accumulated probably about $1 million in debt, in cash. This could be for my home. It could be for the investments that I've done, whatever. Do you want to really walk away from $100,000 that could be passed on to your children because you don't have your estate plan put in place? Because estate plans will allow you to bypass probate in many, many instances. And without the estate plan in place, you are absolutely headed directly into probate. And I'm going to give you an example by a person by the name of Bob Lee. Bob Lee was a multi-millionaire. He was worth $10 million. He developed a thing called the Cash App. He lived in the Bay Area. He was murdered in the streets of San Francisco. He did not have an estate plan. By the way, I'm going to take a quick side turn on this. Understand, he's at a $10 million net worth, and he does not have an estate plan. If you're dealing with a client with a lot of assets, don't presume that they have the estate plan in place, because people like Chadwick Boseman doesn't. People like, Aretha Franklin, Prince, Michael Jackson, all these individuals don't have estate plans in both, regardless of how much money they have, and the same types of problems occur. Prince, for example, he's been in probate for 7 years. But in this instance in particular, it was pretty tragic, because shortly after he died, because it was a murder case, his assets are not only frozen now, but frozen for a long period of time. Every time somebody claims against the assets, there's another period of time that goes by. There's additional cost in legal. So now his family is on GoFundMe saying, we cannot afford to pay for the legal fees for probate. We can't keep up with the mortgage because the assets are frozen in the bank. We can't pay for the mortgage because the mortgage is not in our name. We can't fix this. So now we're facing the loss of the home, and everything that he worked with to develop what he's done is now on the brink of being lost. This is what probate is. And this is the thing we want to avoid as much as we possibly can. And estate planning can do that. We're going to also look at a couple other numbers. This belongs to me because I'm 60 years old. It says people over 55, 52% think that it's going to be irresponsible for if we pass away without having something in place. I was probably at about 50 when I started thinking about this. My wife and I both. Prior to that, I never really gave it that much consideration. I thought, you know what? I'm going to live forever. It's what all young people think for the most part. We're going to live forever. Why do we need that estate plan? How come I have to pay $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000, $6,000? By the way, you don't with LSPN. But why should we have to do this? And so as a result, they don't bother looking at it. But then we get to 50. And age 50 for me was important because at 48, my father passed away of a heart attack. Everybody in my generation prior to me passed away before age 50. So now I start thinking about estate planning. And then I watch people start to die around me. My older uncles, aunts, grandmothers. These people pass away and I watch what happens. This person has an estate plan put in place and everything was sorted and organized in just a complete clean fashion. The loss of the family member was tragic. However, they didn't need to go through all the extra noise of what do we do now. On the other hand, I've also watched people on the other side. At Debt Merica, I was there for 14 years. Out of 14 years, we lost 7 people in that firm. Out of the 7, 6 had nothing. They had no life insurance. They had no estate plan. Oops. So, oh, look, somebody's in charge of muting. So there we go. We got her. Oops. So we've got that. So this is the thing to watch. And then when you watch the tragedy and the disaster that occurs after, you start realizing, what about my family? By the time I've hit 52, 53, I've got my estate plan in place because I think it's going to be. Understand, as you start talking to clients, they are already thinking about it. Shailu, if I'm having a conversation with you about life insurance, when I walk away, there's a likelihood you may be discussing estate planning with your significant other or with your family because that's important to you and you don't know who to talk to. And I forgot to bring it up. That's the first. The next thing to keep in mind is there are an awful lot of people that are out there like this. 67% of the country has nothing. They have no will. They don't have an estate plan. They don't have anything at all in place. Especially they don't have legal guardian clauses in the event that they pass away. What happens to their children? All these things are non-existent. And I will have to tell you this at this point, and keep in mind, we have 90 people online right now. I'm going to blame you. And the reason I'm going to blame you is because 64% of the people that are sitting down with financial advisors are not being discussed with regard to estate planning. In other words, you're not bringing it up. And I think it's really funny because from a professional point, from a financial professional point, I look at it and think, well, Shailu is probably just thinking about estate planning. All I have to do is bring it up. And if I do, now I've got extra revenue. That's me, myself, personally. However, there's 2 things that get in the way, and it gets in the way with agents across the country. For the past year, I ask the question every time I have a discussion with an agent, and I ask them whether or not they talk about it. There's 2 reasons that always come up. Number 1, my clients don't have an estate. You know, they're only 25, 26 years old. I just started in the business myself. They don't have an estate, so there's no point. Why do I even need to? Okay, if you sit down with a client, and if you write a life insurance policy for $500,000 or $1 million, that first check that has been written, yes, it creates a death benefit. Yes, it protects your family. But what it also does is it establishes an immediate estate for your family. If I leave this earth, my family is going to have $1 million inheritance from me. If that's the case, I better have an estate plan in place. So it does not matter about assets. It also doesn't even matter about life insurance because if I and my wife and I have got a child that's just come along and now we've got a 6-month-old child, that's my estate. It's not money, it's who and what I am all around. And yet we're not bringing it up. So that's the first thing to discuss. The other thing is, and this is why you're on the call for tonight, hopefully, is that you just don't know how to talk about it. How do I discuss estate planning? I just finally figured out life insurance. Term insurance is easy. Let's face it. If you pay the premium, you die, you get paid, period. But then Shailu, help me out because I don't quite understand this whole world, this whole life insurance policy about dividends and this and that. And then let's get down to IULs where you have an index and a target premium and you have a living benefit rider because what a fantastic solution that is. But I don't get, and now I finally got that all down pat. And now you're going to tell me I have to talk about estate planning because that's even worse. Because we have to talk about revocable and irrevocable trusts, the thing called an ILIT, which is an life insurance trust, an irrevocable life insurance trust. We have all these things to think about. I want to take all the stress away. I want to make sure that you never have those 2 objections away. And the easiest way to do this is to tell you, you do not have to talk about life insurance, estate planning anymore. You simply need to create a sense of uncomfort or discomfort for your client in order that they start thinking and say, well, if Kevin, if that's the case, if you're telling me that this is the case and I'm exposed, what's my solution? And so, Kevin, I'm going to give you a couple of questions that can create that discomfort. The first one's a really easy one. Do you have a current plan in place if something happens to you or your spouse? Now, most people say, well, that's why I'm an insurance agent with WFG. It's a life insurance policy. That's what it does. It protects my policy. It's a plan for my client if something happens. That's not. Your life insurance policy is the plan until the day your last heartbeat. When your heartbeat stops and the death benefit check is processed, that plan ends. The next thing that you have to consider is, what do you do with that death benefit? And I'm going to give you an example. I've got my wife's friend, and I'm in a hotel, by the way, today, so I can talk a little bit more loudly than I normally. She doesn't like me talking about her friend. But my wife's friend received $1 million death benefit check last year. In a 3-month period of time, she was gone through about 5%, and in 6 months, she was gone through 20% of $1 million death benefit. And you think, how do you go through 20% of $1 million? It's not hard, because when you have $1 million, you figure it'll never go away. It's such a big number that you don't have an understanding of it, especially for her, because she had never dealt with her finances. Her husband dealt with her finances, and so she'd never had her hand on it, which, by the way, is a horrible thing to do. And if you've got a spouse, talk with them about finances, share the information, because they need to be ready. They really do. It's what we do. But what happened here was that she wrote one check for $55,000 to take care of her son's wedding, because I have $1 million. I can just go ahead and write it. Then she decided she wanted to get her home refurbished. And so when she did that, there goes another 150. You're out in 6 months, 200,000. And it's burning fast. And she's 69 years old, and beyond Social Security number, Social Security, she has nothing. So you have to have a plan in place, and trusts can help you with that. They can help you set up a payment plan so that it pays not into, but out of, as an annuity. It can help you organize that money and the distribution of. So that's going to be the first one. The second one, and this is anybody that's in this call, by the way, we got 90 some odd people. Anybody on this call right now, by the way, I have to watch my chat because people ask me questions sometimes and I don't miss it. I thought having a beneficiary and a life insurance does basically the work of where or who gets the death benefit. Yes and no and maybe. So let's talk about that as far as this legal guardian. So who's going to be the legal guardian of your minor children? First off, people think that if something happens to you, or like my wife and I, my logic a long time ago was, if something happens to me, my wife's there. If something happens to my wife, I'm there. So my child is cared for. People don't realize that if you're both gone for some reason, if you don't have the right documentation in place, and you better listen to this, because if you've got children in the home and they're under 18 years old and you think that you're just fine, you should listen closely, is that if something happens to both of you, that means that unless you've got the right documentation in place, the state comes in and takes over. Your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, your mom, your grandfather, anybody can come to the table and say, I'm going to take care of little Charles, don't worry about it. Legally, they do not have the right to. The state will have to go through an adoption process with that person, or a fosterhood process. And so as a result, in the midst of this, and Kevin, I'm going to put it on you just because your name is there. So Kevin, I am going to come to your house as Child Protective Services. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to look to see where you live, what you have. Do you have a home? Do you have a room specifically set up for that child? Do you have enough square footage? Do you have education plans all set up? All these things, I am going to put you through the ringer, and you're his brother. This can be avoided by one single, right, piece of document. Now, that's with both people gone. This is something I just learned recently, is that if you have one gone, I've got an SMD that is studying to be an attorney at the same time as being an SMD, and she's becoming an attorney because when she was 12 years old, her father gave her a life insurance policy death benefit of $1 million. She didn't know what she was doing. The agent didn't know what she was doing, so the death benefit went to the daughter. It did not go to mother. For the next 6 years of her life, anytime she wanted to do something, the mother had to go and ask for permission from the court to say, is it okay to spend money on my daughter? Do you want to put your spouse into that position? Probably not. So these are the things we have to keep in mind. And estate plans go ahead and take care of these things. By the way, it's not just a trust. It's not just a will. It's a combination of all of them. Who makes medical or financial decisions if you can't? I have dressed, I've got pretty bad epilepsy, but it's controlled pretty well through medication. I missed my medication for a few days in a row. Really dumb, my fault. But when I did, I had a massive seizure and I ended up in a coma for 12 hours. Now, when I came to, everything was fine, or at least I thought, until I got home and we talked to my wife. And my wife wasn't too happy about me missing medications. But she was also upset about the fact that she said, the doctor came to me and asked if we have an advance directive, and I had to say no. Now, what the heck is an advance directive? It is what I say are my wishes in the event that I can't make my own decisions. If I'm on life support, I forced my wife to have to make decisions as to what she does. Fortunately, I woke up fast enough because I know she'd pull that plug if she gets a chance, because I just don't think that's a whole different story. But the fact be told, if you don't have documentation in place, you are either going to not have anyone that has a legal right to do so, because unless it's your spouse or unless you are a minor and it's your parents, there's no one there for you. The state again gets involved. Remember COVID? Every time somebody was hospitalized on COVID with life support and intubation, all those things were occurring. If there was no documentation put in place, the state was making choices for them, nobody else. If you're okay with the state making choices about your children's care or making decisions about your care, then fine, go ahead and stay out of this. Go ahead and log out. If you're not okay with that, then you better start talking about estate planning. By the way, these questions are all intended, remember, to make you feel uncomfortable. And they should. By the way, I'm going to go back to this one for another second. We talked about me and my wife having to make a decision. At about 3 o'clock in the morning one night, one morning, and my daughter it was hospitalized. I get a phone call from a friend of hers, and all the message is your daughter's at Mission VA Hospital, Mission Hospital, and that's all she said, and hung up. I went down to the hospital and I had to wait for the next 12 hours to find out what was going on, because I didn't have a medical directive in place for my daughter saying it was okay for me to make decisions for her. So the hospital was not allowed to tell me about what was going on. If you have children away from at college, you better have the right documentation in place. These are all intended to make you feel uncomfortable. Do you have a plan in place in the event that you can't take care of yourself? What happens to your home? If nobody's ever heard of a fire sale is when you have to get rid of a home very quickly because you need to get assets to help someone. Having the right estate plan put in place, that can prevent this as well. And that final piece is going to be, what happens to your business if you can't run it? If you're looking as an agent at War Financial Group and you truly want to become a career, I became a Legacy Shield agent in 2022, paid subscription, and now I'm referred to LSPN. I'm reading the question through referrals. Can the other members of my FG team become LSPN agents without having to pay to become an agent? Absolutely. Thank you very much for asking that. So LSPN and we have a loose connection, but don't worry about LSPN's legacy thing. There's no cost to them. There's no cost to LSPN. But you should keep in mind, and Kevin, again, because you're on the screen and I'm here, you know what? You and I are business partners. I'm a baker, man. I love to bake bread. That's a side thing that's kind of true. I love to bake bread. Kevin is the superstar bread seller, man. He can market everybody. He can sell bread to every single grocery store everywhere. I am making bread like crazy. And then I have a stroke. Now I can't make bread. Kevin's got no bread. He can't sell it. What happens? The trust and the insurance that can be built into and properly set up can prevent both of us from being into trouble. The other side of it can be the same thing, is that if something happens to Kevin, now I got a bunch of moldy bread in the house. What do? The same thing. That estate plan can be a partnership between you and me built inside a trust. And these are the things that LSPN does. So all the questions are set here. By the way, don't ask every single question to every person. Just pick one for one person. And everybody that has a minor child, absolutely. And by the way, if you've got a special needs minor children, that's a whole different story. All these things lead up to the same question. It's going to be this. So Kevin, you know what? I want you to have a conversation with my legal team. They're going to give you a 30-minute consultation at no cost and no obligation. They've got plans that range really basic, but they also have ones that are very, very complex. In fact, they have even plans that'll start at $50 a month. So if you think you can't afford them, just have the conversation, because it won't cost you anything to have the discussion. There's not going to be any kind of high pressure. And if you all do not have your own plan in place, this goes to every single one of you online. Have that first 30-minute conversation. Find out what we do. We can set up a time at a later date. We can set up a meetup now because I can get you right onto a Zoom call with with a legal team right now if you want. And that's it. That's my script. Stick to it. Don't go any further. You start talking about things, you're going to get questions. You can't answer the questions, then you're going to get confused. And then guess what? You're never going to talk to them. Going back to the first question on the prior page, do they need to be, I've got to back this up for a quick second because we can answer questions as we go. Going back to the thing, it said, you then need a life insurance, a living trust, making the trust the owner of the policy owner. You know what, Christian, rather than going into total details like that, that's going to be something that I would always recommend that you do this. Have a 30-minute conversation with our team. You are welcome to have that discussion, have it, learn those questions. I'm not going to answer them. I'm not an attorney. I know how trusts work. I've got a fantastic one in place that I was helped out by LSPN. But absolutely have that first conversation, learn those questions. So next thing to do, let's go on to the next thing, which is LSPN. What goes through? Kevin is super excited. He's wanting to move over. By the way, Kevin, you got like an evil last name, man. Do you know all about Monsanto? Are you part of that same company?
No, that's no, I'm Monsanto is it's Dominican, so we have nothing to do with them.
Cow, if you ever, I just noticed your last name. You gotta watch out for him, man. Kevin will like steal your seed off of the crops and stuff.
No,
Wipe out
no.
all the chickens. Okay, so Kevin's going to be my client. He's going to go through a 30-minute consultation. My suggestion to you is that you have that 30-minute consultation with the client. I say, Kevin, I am going to be there with you because there's going to be things that may come up in the conversation that may open up other business opportunities with him and me. He didn't tell me about the fact he's got children from his second relationship that he forgot to tell me about. I now have more life insurance, or maybe he talks to and starts talking about his family before him, his parents, his grandparents. Maybe they need help as well. Things will come up in these conversations that always lead to new business. So that's the first thing I want to be there. The second one, I'm not going to worry so much about it. That's going to be the design meeting. The design meeting is going to be more detailed. Who do you want for a trustee? Who do you want to have a beneficiary? Who's going to make decisions if that beneficiary is not around? All these things that you need to plan, those are going to be done, and that you don't have to be there. The next one we look at, oh, Diane's doing screen print. She's scaring me. So design meeting. Then we get to draft the documents. We're going to write it up based on everything that he needs. By the way, it says it's very important to review. Oh my gosh, it is. No matter how good we are, we will always end up a misspell somewhere or a misstatement somewhere. You have to go through every page. And it's a horrible thing to do because it's 180 pages long sometimes. But go through every single page because then we send out a notary. You notarize the docs. And when those documents are notarized, they're written in stone. If you need to make changes now, it's going to cost you money. And it's not our fault because you got the chance to look at them. So the same thing is really important. Go through the documents. Get the notary done. And the final thing we do is I'm going to take your home out of your name. Harriet, I'm going to take the money out of your name. I'm going to move it from your name. I'm going to put it into the trust name. I'm going to take your bank account. I'm going to put it into the trust. I'll transfer it from your regular name to the trust name. I'm going to take all of your investments, put them in the trust because I want to prevent everything from getting caught up in probate. And that's what we do. That's our process, beginning to end. Sometimes it's really complex. Sometimes it's really simple, but it's the same path every day. How do we get a client to us? It's really simple. LSPN Direct, we already talked about that. Most of you have already registered with us, and so you already know how to do this because that's why you got the invite. So we're not going to worry about this too much. But if you've never dealt with us before, or if you're somebody else sent over a link, because I know I told some people to just go ahead and invite them if they want, they would start at registration. Now, oh my gosh, I'm down below. I'm on the video on both places. I don't know how I did that. Okay, so we're going to click on registration. Registration's got 3 buttons. First one's register with LSPN. Because there's been a couple of questions, I'm going to address this right now. When I click with LSPN, register with LSPN, it opens up a brand new tab. And you'll notice that even though it says LSPN here, up at the top, it says Legacy Shield. It's because we have a partnership with them. We do a lot of their complex cases. And so as a result, they handle our data. We handle their service on certain clients. So we've got this 2-way combination. And so as a result, they handle our registration process. Don't panic with this though. Somebody asked about whether or not I have to pay a fee if I want to do this with Legacy Shield. Not at all. Nothing at all. It's just the name, the address, the phone, the email, so I know who you are, where you are. That gets done. You will never have to go back to that page again. There's a payment portal, and that's going to be a third party. We do direct deposits directly into your checking or saving. Eddie, if you want to get paid, you don't go through WFG because WFG takes a portion as a cut. You're going to get 100% of the compensation from us, but we pay you through payment portal. The last one is this, and this is because I want to nudge you along the way. I want you, Eddie, to get that first consultation done for free, and you may as well schedule yourself for the first time and get started. Okay. Having a major problem. Carrie, do me a favor. Wait till the end. I'm going to go ahead and put my name and contact information. If anybody has a problem getting registered, I will absolutely help you out with that. Okay. Now, the next page we're going to look at is appointments. Now, I always said, you know what? Why don't we just call this referrals? And somebody told me, it's like, because it's not a referral, it's an appointment. So Admira, what I'm going to do is I'm going to schedule a time with my team for you. So I do not want to go into here and just start putting in your information, because if I do and I don't know what day you want to meet, then I don't know. I need to be with you and I need to say, okay, what day, what time do you want to meet? Because I'm going to put you on the calendar. Okay, we're not just going to put a name and a number in the phone system. We're going to schedule. Now, for the sake of things, we got 3 buttons to pick from. I'm not going to ever worry about until you start getting really good with regard to working with referrals. Don't ever worry about advanced planning because we'll take care of that for you. You are going to stay in the simple planning section, because if it turns out to be an advanced client, we will transfer them up into the advanced planning section. We'll talk about pricing in a little bit, but I will tell you, as far as compensation, simple planning fees are always $200 to the agent. So if you have a simple plan, that's going to pay you out $200. If it's an advanced plan, which is done on a custom basis, and that can be a more expensive plan for the client, it will pay you out $400. However, if you're a simple plan and you submit as simple and it turns out you're advanced, you're still going to get paid the advance. So don't worry about it. Stay with the simple. So let's look at the 2 buttons. I can hit the live video and it goes right to Zoom. What constitutes an advanced plan? Thank you so much, Judith. So if you look at these here, these are the general items that can say, these are the types of things that will take you into an advanced planning session. There's also a questionnaire up at the top if you want to get even more detailed. It's typically people with high assets, high net worth. It's going to be business owners. It'll be people with special needs. There could be people that have got offshore assets, or that they may have non-US citizen status. So there's a collection of different things there, and it gets more and more and more complex. So it gets a little bit more and more challenging to go. And Gary, I'm going to hold up. Well, actually, if it's related to this specifically, go ahead, fire away. What's up?
So just uniqueness of, especially in this day and age, people that are living together consider themselves husband and wife, but legally they're not.
Oh, I don't care about this. When it comes to
Okay.
estate plan, you and I can put together a trust and put our both names on it if we want to do it that way. Has nothing to do with marital status at all.
Really? For like splitting property and stuff like that?
If you, it would all be on a custom basis, and it's however you've got the mortgage set. If the mortgage is set with your name and only your name, then you can't just, you can put her onto the deed. You can't put her on the loan. So there's a collection of things that you would look at that, but don't sweat it when it comes to the trust for all intent and purpose. It's all going to be that. So it can be really simple.
Perfect. Thanks.
Do all LSPN, you know what? Great question, Satish. Thank you very much. We're going to get to that as far as whether or not you get an online vault. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's get into these 2 buttons though. These 2 buttons, live video, is exactly what it sounds like. Eddie and I want to sit down. We want to have a conversation. We click on the button. It opens up a Zoom call. Push that again. There's a receptionist. We'll put you in touch with someone right then. You'll have the conversation right away, provided we've got somebody available. And most of the time we do. If you don't want to do that, we want to schedule an appointment. I'm going to click on schedule. Eddie's going to be my client. I've got a collection of things I can put here. I can put in, first of all, some general information up at the top. I don't know what I'm going to say there. I'm going to fill out his information as far as the client. I'm going to put in a sample test here, by the way. I'm going to put in his information at the client. I'm going to put my information in as the agent. You know, Admira and I, we both got together and we did the presentation together, so I can even do a split agent if I want to, and we could do 50-50 split on the compensation. But Amir said, you know what? Don't worry about that, Charles. You go ahead and get paid 100%. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Then I click next. This is where I think it's going to be important. You got to remember the next page is going to bring up a Calendly link. And we all know what Calendly link is. Or I sure hope you are, because now you'll see there are no more items left in January. I sure hope not either, because we're at the last day of the month. But if we look, we can just click on the next month, find a day, find a time. So Eddie, I want to go and take a look and find out what comes up. We'll see what's available. Boy, there's a lot of appointments going on right now too. And we've opened up staffing recently. So he says the 13th is good. He says that at 6:30 a.m. that's going to be Central Time, because that's where I am right now. It's wherever you guys are. We click on the next. It's scheduled. It's on the books. It's ready to go. Everything is set. And I don't have to worry about whether or not he's going to be there or not, because I'll get an invite also as an agent. That's it as far as the appointments. So, and by the way, there's, well, you know what? Somebody just mentioned the fact I'm in Pacific time. I am in Central time. My computer thinks he's still back in Central and Pacific. Thank you. Okay. So now we'll get to the next one, which is resources. These appointments are really simple. If you've got questions, you get tough. By the way, I'll let you all in on a secret. If you have a question and you want to ask LSPN rather than call an 800 or whatever, yeah, no, I got that about the time zones. So when we do this, if you look, there's a live video. If I have a question I want to ask about, well, who should I refer this to, or what should I do, or how do I get paid, and all this, click on the live video. The person that will answer that video, that Zoom, will be able to answer just about any of your questions. And if they can't, they'll go ahead and direct them. So, wow, you guys got awesome questions, by the way. I'm seeing tons of them come in. The next thing we want to look at is resources. Now, this is a fast start, right? This is not a detailed start. So as a result, we need to talk to you about the three most important things on this slide. First of all, they are important. Every section of estate planning is discussed on YouTube videos right there. So you can talk about basic planning. You can talk about business planning, special needs, which is anybody that's got an autistic child. If you've got a neighbor that has an autistic child, you watch that video. I promise you're going to walk away with some knowledge that you're going to be able to bring right back to them. I have two next door neighbors. They both became clients after I watched the video. I understood what a special needs trust was, and I understood what it was and how it worked. I didn't understand how important it was until I saw the video. One of the things that, by the way, that can occur that you need to realize, especially in special needs, is if I have Medicaid that's helping my child, and I have certain assets helping that child, once that person receives my inheritance, then all of a sudden they've got now so much money that Medicaid can say, sorry, we can't pay you anything. But if you set it up properly and the trust is holding the money, then you can continue to receive Medicaid services and assets while you still keep your money that you've got in the bank. So there are some pretty spectacular things that can be done on that side. The three buttons I want to look at. First of all, assisted trust plan. We're going to do this a side-by-side comparison. So watch, we're going to look at both of these. I'm going to copy this one. We're going to look at the assisted trust. And we're also going to compare that to the one that's right next to it, which is the legacy plan. So let's go here. So now we have two plans side by side. And there's a reason why I did this. The one on the left-hand side, this is an assisted trust plan. It's a package program. It works for about 80% of our clientele. So people say, well, what about a simple? What about an advanced? Doesn't matter. Bring them all to simple. If it's an advanced class, that's going to be custom. It'll be more expensive. But the assisted trust is going to be for $997. It goes through, it covers the trust. So we're going to get ahead and we'll avoid probate. We'll make sure that we get things taken care of. We'll make sure that we'll get the child set up. All those things get taken care of in the revocable trust. We've got a will there. By the way, if somebody says, I have a will, I don't need a trust. The easiest way to get them off of that is to simply say, well, Nan, do you realize that wills go through probate and trusts don't? That's enough to get me interested right away. Because the reason I wanted the will was because I wanted to make sure I could avoid probate. And I thought I was avoiding probate. And now all of a sudden you told me I'm not. So wills go into probate, trusts don't. This is a special type of will. It doesn't go through probate because what it does is it picks up the scraps around your house and puts them all in the trust for you at the time of your death. So you don't have to worry about listing everything after long after. There's a financial power of attorney, so you can make decisions. And Mary, if you can't make decisions on your behalf, you can name somebody to do that for you. You can take healthcare documents, so make sure that you can do that as well to make sure somebody can make decisions on behalf of your health. And so they can talk to them about health. My daughter being in the hospital, I would have been able to know what was going on, when, where, what kind of physical medical treatment she was receiving. I could have even said, I don't think she'd want this. I think she'd want that. Our notary is packaged into this, and then also funding assistance, which is the process of getting you the properties over into our name. This is a package that costs $997. Oh, thank you so much, Rommel, because it's going to cost $997. If you are an agent, there is a $400 reduction on that. So instead of $997, it is $597. That's a drastic drop. By the way, you cannot find a thorough and put together will for $600. So $600 for all this is just ridiculous. Make sure, again, go through that 30 minute for a consultation. So you said, well, why do you want to show that? If that looks such a great thing, why would you want to show the other thing? So let me show you why. On this one, this is a package program, and it's a package within a package. Here's the assisted trust right there. That is everything we just talked about for $997. But we put this into a payment plan. What if they have multiple plans, Renee? It's an additional $100 per, and that's all listed out, and we break that out for the clients. When it comes to an assisted trust, that's going to be all the things we just discussed a second ago. But this is the main piece that I'm going to say, and this is why you absolutely would want to opt for Legacy for Life as opposed to. And that's because we provide a maintenance plan where you'll have updates done. If you need to make changes, there's not going to be additional costs. There's not going to be additional problems. And so as a result, that's the primary reason why you want to be able to do this. You need to make changes as far as a beneficiary or an address or social or whatever. There's no cost for that. We also do annual reviews. In addition, there's a collection of other services. I'm not going to go into all of them because you need to really sit down and go through these brochure, because the brochure will walk you through each and every item on there. If you notice at the bottom, it says $50 per month for 24 months. So do the math, that comes out to $1,200. The other one was $1,000. That annual review and the minor updates for the plan absolutely outweigh the extra $200 that you're paying for the payment plan. If you get somebody that says, well, I just want to write one check, be done, you can write a check for $50, and then the next monthly payment is going to be good question, Satish. Restrictions apply. Restrictions apply is my fastest way because I'm not an attorney and I want it to be the easiest way rather than put a ton of fine print. But the restrictions apply, basically saying that you're going to have to make at least 24 months payments, and then there's some details to it. It's really making reference to the fact there's not going to prevent anybody from being in there. So when we look at this, are there any more fees after the 24 months? If you would like to continue everything else on this list, the legacy videos, the personal benefits, the client vault, if you want to keep that in play constantly going forward, we change it from $50, we go down to $25 per month at the end of the second year. And it's an option. If you want to move forward with it, great. If you don't, that's fine as well. There's a discount, Rama. I'm so glad you asked. Is there a discount? We take we take more than that. Rather than $50 per month for 24 months, it's $50 a month for 1 year, not 2 years. So the cost of the assisted trust and the cost of the Legacy for Life platform for an agent are exactly the same. So you tell me, Nandi, do you buy a Toyota or do you buy a Lexus if the price is exactly the same? That's where it comes down to. We're going to go ahead and get to the next. By the way, there's a ton of questions. We're going to try to address them as fast as we can. But the last one I'm going to take on this, and this is going to be a really fast pass on this, and that is this button here, which is schedule a workshop. It is a little hidden gem. You know, my father-in-law died at 94 years old 2 months ago. At age 80, he was walking through a rec center down by where he lived. And he picked up a little flyer that said, join us for an estate planning webinar or seminar. There was no such thing as webinars at the time. Join us for an estate planning seminar. My wife saw it. She said, well, what the heck, let's go. Because of that action, He put into a trust that was put into place that not only did he take care of him at his death, but at 86 years old, he fell down a flight of stairs. And from that moment on, my wife cared for everything that he needed to do financially and medically and would not have been able to do. But it was because of an 8.5 by 11 flyer that it was posted. Now, if you want to try to do a seminar, good luck. Harriet, how do you do an estate planning seminar? You can't do it. How are you going to do it? Because you're not an attorney. Guess what? Schedule a workshop. Let us know when. Give me at least 10 people in the audience, and you can pick the topic, and I will bring the attorney. There's a philosophy I have. If you can fish with a hook or you fish with a net, I will tell you fish with a net every time. If you put together a workshop, you are going to be able to post this on Facebook and say, I've got an estate planning seminar coming up this weekend. I'd love you all to be there. You don't say World Financial Group because otherwise WFG gets upset about the compliance. But if it's just you and your name, you're totally good. Take advantage of this every time you want. Now, by the way, don't do these just for yourself. Get together with a half dozen people in your office. Say, hey, let's all get 5 people each together. And if you need some help getting some people together, it's not that hard. Look around your neighborhood. Has anybody just bought a house? Because that person needs an estate plan. Find a mortgage broker. Ask them, hey, do you do estate planning too? Because if not, I can do an estate planning seminar for all of your clients that are buying houses, and I'll share revenue with you. There's so many things that you can do with this, and you can go so much more deep. Because, Harriet, after the client gets the estate plan, you know what? One of the things the attorney is likely going to say is, now that this is set up, you need life insurance, go back to Harriet. So that's where we go. Get with an SMD before you start coordinating this for the first time if you're not, or at least a marketing director. Make sure that you do this as an effort. Don't do this as an individual. Because if you're doing it as an individual, it will come across 10 people as nice. If you've got 5 people doing 10 people each, now you've got 50 people in the room, you're going to be a lot more successful. Okay. We're running through, we're going to go through one last thing, and that's going to be one last page on this because I want to have you all understand what the heck is a trust anyway. I don't get it. I don't understand it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this page here for a moment, and let's take away everything and just kind of break it and build it out back afterward. Okay. And I don't have my mouse today, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. So hold on. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go push this button, and we'll go here. Okay.
Today
First
is
off,
Wednesday.
whoever's open mic, please take that off. Okay, I take out everything. This is Mrs. Smith. She has 3 children. One's over 18. The other 2 are children. She has no life insurance. She has no estate plan. She has nothing. She dies. What happens to the family? It falls apart because there's nobody to care for the children. So there's a possibility that they fall into the state and the state system. The 18-year-old has never been taken care of by himself. And now all of a sudden his mom is gone. They've been renting an apartment, so they don't have any assets. He's 18 years old. He doesn't know how to get himself. And all of a sudden, instantly, he's out on the street, and he's going to have to figure out what he's going to do and fend for himself. He's also got to worry about what happens to his brother and his sister. That by itself is scary. Your solution as a WFG agent in the past, before we talk about comprehensive financial planning, is this. Let's get a life insurance policy. I'll put $1 million policy in place. If something happens, each of the children get $333,000, and we're good. What's the problem with that? 2 of the children are minors. So the 2 children that are minors, are they still going to be cared for because we don't have a guardianship clause? So they're still dealing with the state system. The 18-year-old is still trying to figure out what to do because he's lost, but he's now got $330,000 in the bank, and he's never dealt with money before. So good luck that he doesn't go out and spend that money very, very quickly. So all kinds of things are going on. Life insurance is a good thing, but it's not a perfect thing. It needs more. And that's where we start talking about estate planning. Estate planning does this. You've got a grantor. That's Mrs. Smith. She says, I want to set up a trust. I'm going to determine what I want to get done. By the way, I have 2 children. I want to decide that I'm going to say that my sister is going to be the trustee for the guardian for them. Written into the trust. That's perfect. Now the kids know where they're going to go. They're taken care of by the children, by the mom, or by the aunt. By the way, that money is going to stay in the trust until the children turn 18 years old. At that point in time, they turn to 18, then the cash can be given out to him. Or if she says, I'm worried about my children because I'm not know if they're going to be responsible enough. So I can say we can give a portion at 18, but we can also give a portion at 21 and 25 and 30 and whatever you want to do. So you have a lot of structure that you can build here. There has to be a trustee. The trustee needs to be the one that's going to make the decisions and do everything that mom said, that Mrs. Smith said, and she or he are going to be the trustee and in charge of everything as they go along. That trustee could be a beneficiary, it doesn't matter. It could be a brother, it could be a sister, it can be LSPN because we can work as a trustee, but we will charge a fee for that. The 18-year-old is going to be in a lot better shape here too now because you can go ahead and control that money going out. You change the game in an instant. You take a life insurance policy by Transamerica and you've instantly turned it into such a better product. And you know what? Most of the people that are out there are not talking about their clients about this. You're missing the opportunity every time. Crash course on what we were talking about today. And then we'll go ahead and answer any kind of questions for anybody because we may run a minute or too long. Structured properly. Don't do a do-it-yourself thing. Don't go cheap. Don't buy $500 program through. I'm almost mentioning the company name. I'm not going to do it. This is not a do-it-yourself scenario. You want to change your tires? Do it. I don't care. Do not try to create your own trust. It's not a smart thing because if you make a mistake, it won't matter to you, Harriet, because you're dead. It'll sure matter to your kids if you foul it up. It has to be funded properly. In other words, we need to take the house and the assets and put them, as long as they're titled, they have to be funded properly and in that trust. They have to be executed properly. One of the biggest problems we have with LSPN is that clients are so lazy. They go through all the paperwork. We sit down, we meet with them. They write up the documents, everything. I hand her 180 pages and then they don't get it signed and notarized. And I've had that happen over and over and over again. And if something happens to that person and they can't think any longer clearly, they can't have it notarized. So even though they wrote it up last year because they've got a condition now that they can't decide, it can be scary. They don't need to be recorded with the state when it comes to trust. Wills do. The deeds have to be recorded. But this prevents you from worrying about that whole nonsense about probate. It doesn't need to be listed as far as, you don't have to take your property as far as everything scattered around your home. You just need to take your title assets. And the last thing is, it doesn't have to be expensive. I've got clients that pay $2,500 to $3,000 easily. When I signed my trust, I remember talking with the person that was notarizing my documents, and she says, this looks like about a $5,000 trust. It cost me $1,500. It does not have to be expensive. It shouldn't be. I'm going to put a contact information up and I'm going to try to crash course through some of the questions that we've got. And if anybody wants to throw up a hand on the little virtual hand thing, go ahead and do that. We'll try to catch the hands. Don't do it on the camera itself because it'll be so much stuff to read through. Okay, real quick. Let's go through them all and see if I can get through this fast. Okay, somebody's doing screenshots. Diane, I don't know why you're doing screenshots other than the fact you got the thumb up. And so it looks like you're just being super helpful. And I totally appreciate that if that's what it was. If I'm missing something else, then I actually, Diane was just killing it. You know what she's doing? She's just being my note taker. Thank you so much. What's the role of Legacy Shield? So crash course on Legacy Shield. Legacy Shield started a relationship with WFG about 10 years ago. Immediately they realized, wow, we're in over our head because we need to have somebody that knows what they're doing with trusts. The owner of my firm, Glenn Wagstaff, became friends with the owner of a Legacy Shield, and they said, I will do the trust for you, you do the wills. And that's how it stayed for a long time. We realized after, and it's on a recorded call, but I'll say it anyway, we didn't need Legacy Shield. We can still work with Legacy Shield, and they're great people and everything else, but we don't really need them, and neither do you. You can go directly to us at any time that you'd like. I didn't have time to read the whole slide. Could you put it up again? Carrie, I missed it, so no, I can't. I saw. Maybe we'll get that back, or maybe that was one of the ones that
I got it, Diane screenshot.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. Going back to the question on the prior page, we talked about that. Do we need to have placed? Oh, do we need to place the life insurance in a living trust, making the trust the policy owner? You know, Christian, back to that question again, just for a moment, and that depends. If you and I are business partners, and I want to have you as my beneficiary if I die, you as my beneficiary if I, you know, buy sell. If we have that, that's fine. But I want to make sure that we go ahead and we put that policy inside a trust because the trust's going to own it. That way, there's no questions as to what happens. I'm going to turn it into what's called an irrevocable trust. It means it can't be changed. So in the middle of the night, you can't wake up and change the beneficiary and not tell me. So that's going to be the first one. Next one, and I'm trying to be just respectful for time. We hit 7:01, so if you have to leave, I totally get it, but I will try to blast through whomever you've got here. Someone asked if there are people, if they're speaking with a lawyer with the 30-minute consultation. Renee, sometimes yes, sometimes no. If it's a simple plan, we don't necessarily have you talk originally with an attorney. A lot of the times you'll work with one of our law team. And then what happens is that gets reviewed after we fill out the initial documentation. We're going to go ahead and follow up afterward with a review by one of our attorneys. I'm having major problems registering for payment. Carrie, I'm going to keep you've got my contact information. Reach out to me. We'll go ahead and figure that out and make sure I'll get you paid. Satish says, do all LSPN clients get an online vault? Yes. So that online vault is absolutely available on both sides. So whether or not it's a simple plan or a custom plan, yes, absolutely. And what she's asking about that as far as the online vault, it's a secure site where you can go ahead and upload your documents and make sure that they're secure. Don't keep your trust on a Google Doc, please. I promise you, Google Docs can get hacked way more than anybody ever realizes. What constitutes an advanced plan? Judith, as I said, the best way to do that is refer the client in. We'll go ahead and give more consultations. As you start working with us, you're going to find out more. But that questionnaire that's right above the simple plan, that's going to be your answer to that. Does estate planning benefit a church or a nonprofit? Kevin, I'm going to crash course on this one. Okay, I have $1 million I want to be assigned to my church when I die. But I also have my family and I want to take care of them. Instead of losing $1 million and giving the $1 million from my assets to the church, I can get a life insurance policy. So listen close because this is important. I get a life insurance policy. I put it into an irrevocable trust. It means it can't be changed. I put the beneficiary as the church. Now I'm only paying a premium for the life insurance. I'm not paying $1 million to the church. I'm just paying the premium. And better still is that because the premium is going into a death benefit and the death benefit is going to go to a nonprofit, the life insurance premium becomes tax deductible for me. That's a really complex scenario. Bring the client to us. We'll go ahead and talk to them. And we'll make sure that we get things done for them. Do all LSPN get an on-involved void? We already got that one. You're in Pacific time. We already did that. Do we attach ourselves to the scheduled appointments? Patrick, when you're filling out the schedule, on the next thing, when you're on the Calendly, the next page will say you want to add guests. Say yes. Add your guest, add yourself. You're the guest and you're in. Okay. Thanks again, Diane, for the screen print. We've got what's the cost of the assisted trust? $997. What if they have multiple properties? Renee, there's an additional $100 per additional property that we do as far as deed transfer, which by the way is very, very low. We're not, by the way, doing the whole transfer. All we're doing is for writing up the documentations. You're required to go down to the courthouse or to the county recorders to fill that out. Diane's got some sort of web link there, the assisted trust. That's good. And then there's a license, no license, no code. Technically, you should have a code. As a matter of fact, let me go back. Officially, formally, kind of informally, yes, you should have a code. But I don't want to argue with that. Okay. Restrictions apply. What are they? Satish, reach out to me if you need to. Sakina says, are there any more fees after the 24 months? We covered that question. Is there a discount for WFG agents? We covered that. This is excellent. I'll try to schedule one tonight for February. Awesome. I am so glad. And Rosie, the person that you should be looking at if you don't have a trust is please, and every single one of you online, every single one, don't sell yourself short. I'm not asking you to get a trust. I'm not asking you to buy anything, pay for anything. I am just asking you to go through the 30-minute consultation because what you will get out of that for free is that you'll know what the process is. Because when I sit down to Rosie and Rosie says, oh, I don't want to go through that because I'm going to get to this and that's going to happen. Nope. You know what, Rosie? I did it last week myself. I know exactly what they go through. They'll walk you through. They'll ask you some questions. It's really simple. You'll learn a little bit about estate planning and you're done. Only the video would be made available. Or I think it's Diane saying, oh, would you share the slides? Gosh, Diane, you're just killing it for me. Holy cow. So I can't share them. Anybody that wants, you've got my email address up there. Say, can you please send me a copy of the video? Once it's free, I'll go ahead and send you the link. And more screenshots. And is it advisable for a couple to be a trustee of each other in case one dies? Girly May, my trust is set up. My wife and I are both the trustees of the same trust. If something happens to either one of us, we can appoint another trustee. You can always have contingents, just like you have contingent beneficiaries. So yes, absolutely. If that trust is benefiting you and your spouse should be the trustees initially. Rama, if the primary house is both the husband and the wife, if something happens to one, does it transfer to the partner or not? No idea. Don't want to guess. sounds like a good idea, but what the heck? I would check with, for example, California's community property. Technically, it would revert to me if we have it written properly in the trust and my wife is giving me her assets. But because California is a community property state, technically her half is her half, my half is my half. If she wants to, she has the legal right to say that she wants to pass her half of the house off to someone else. But that's a long story. Oh my gosh, 14 new messages better be hard. Can we refer attorneys to the network? Absolutely. Drop an email to me. If you've got an attorney, I'm looking for them all over the country. I'm also looking for notaries all over the country because I've got a notary network. Drop me an email. I'll go ahead and put you in touch. Didn't see the screen before. Sorry, Amparo, can't help you on that one. Thank you, Charles. Can you send the link of the recording? Yes, we can. Arthur, do me a favor. Send me an email asking me that because as soon as we're done, I'll lose these notes. Do we need a will and a trust? Absolutely. They work in conjunction with each other. It's not the same as a normal will. It's a pour over will. It works in conjunction. How do people communicate if they're living that they have a living trust in place? How will the survivors know? You make sure that you let them know. I reached out. I talked to the beneficiaries of my trust. I talked to the trustees. I talked to everybody that's on it. You don't want to put somebody in as my trustee, like my brother, for example. He's my backup trustee. I couldn't make him a trustee unless he knew, because there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of effort that goes into it and a lot of work. So there you are. Commissions, Phyllis. Simple plans 200, advanced plans 400. We're already starting the planning process. I needed this for my clients. Thank you so much, Rosie. I'm super glad to hear that. Should a couple schedule a consultation together? Absolutely. I'm going to tell you about this with LSPN, with WFG, for anything in the sales world of ever. I'm 60 years old. I've done sales for all my life. If you've got a couple that's involved and they're both decision makers, don't ever do a presentation to one, because then you just have to go sell the same thing a second time. It makes a lot more sense. Or the person that you've sold to is going to go and try to explain it to his wife, and then his wife is going to say, I don't need this, because they don't know how to talk. Send me a copy of the video. Like I said, anybody wants it, send me an email. If the meeting goes more than 30 minutes, how much do they charge? We don't. Amparo, our 30 minutes is the soft WFG 30 minutes. We don't care. What our focus is we make sure that there is no family left behind. I just made that up. Thanks again for the email for Gary. If I really want to do, what's the first step to start? Send yourself, schedule your register number 1, and then after you register, schedule an appointment. I think we're just about done. Notary, Angela and Angelica, send me an email. We'll go ahead and do it. There's no second sessions. Thank you very much for asking for that. Okay, I think, oh my gosh, are we done? 2 more messages last. I'm also willing to become a notary if you can pass on the information to sign up. Gary, send me an email. Tell me that. I don't care. And the notes will get lost in a moment. And then great information is the webinar on February 7th, the same information. It is, but it's different. They always come up a little bit different. Thank you all so much for all the answers and questions and stuff. And I'm so sorry because I don't like to run past, and I did. But you know what? I have to tell you, I am so glad that I accidentally did it. Kingsley had a question. Kingsley, talk fast.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So what I want to talk about is the review of the doc. I mean, it's full of legal jargon. I referred a client, and one thing I liked was that they sent a notary to the client's house, and that was great. But the documents, reviewing the documents, it seems like it's not a normal practice of them to review the document with the clients before they sign. Is that something you can comment on?
No, that's exactly correct. So the process is this: you're going to get all the documents. Maria, I hope you don't look. Maria looks like she's so sad. Okay, she's back. I think so sad. With regard to that, we're not going to take responsibility for the review part. That's your spot. So if I refer to Diane is going to get an email. Here's all your papers. Here's your trust. Here's your will. Here's your deed transfer. All the papers that you're going to have, and they're going to be all in different file attachments. There's going to be instructions that are going to say, do this, do this, do this, do this. Number 1, review, make sure that they're all accurate. Number 2, call and schedule an appointment with one of our notaries. And number 3, you're good to go. One thing that you got to keep in mind is that you need to have a second witness in certain scenarios. So just make sure that you've got a friend, a family member, somebody that may be in the area. I just went over to my next door neighbor and said, hey, can you notarize for me? Okay. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, I'm not sure if you understood the review. I'm talking about when the document is done, reviewing it with the client to, for the client to understand what the document actually says. So,
Right.
I mean, each page says something, and these clients, it seems like it's a cut and paste document, but the clients don't understand. They don't understand what's in the trust. They got it. They have assets that has been accounted for in the trust, but they don't understand what the trust actually says. What does it say for instance, what does it say for their trustee to do in case they are not there? Or none of these is revealed to them unless me as an agent press them to do the review with the client. I cannot review that with the client. I don't understand the trust.
Right. So Kingsley, if you, the thing to keep in mind, and this is awkward, but it is what it is. We charge $997, but that's for a program that would normally cost anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000. If you want to go that higher route, there can be much more spending time going through page by page by page. We're putting together the documents that are legal documents that are associated with the trust and what needs to have to be put in place. The requirement is, however, for that client to read through those documents and to go through. And I'll tell you, when I read through mine, I'm educated and I've spent a long time reading legal documents in a variety of different capacities of what I've done, and it's heavy reading. But what I would normally recommend in a scenario like that is the client reads through page by page, use a Post-it note, put a Post-it on each page. When they're done with all of them, they reach back out to us and say, I have questions about these pages. Can somebody help me? And they should be able to help them.
Okay, I have another question. What constitutes an advanced plan?
I'm going to share this one, but we'll share this one more time. Let's go, because I have to watch out for my time, and we can kind of follow up on a follow-up if you need. But on the page where it says appointments, right below simple planning, there's a questionnaire. And if you open up that questionnaire, it'll have a collection of questions, and that will be the questions that will typically be associated with something that's going to be an advanced plan. If you've got firearms in the home, whether or not you've got trademarks, if you've got your own business, if you've got corporations, do you have to qualify for Medicaid and you're trying to protect your Medicaid from being damaged? Are you worried about beneficiaries that are going to be under 18? Are you worried about assets that are going to be held outside the country? There's so many aspects of that we're going to ask for. So the easiest way to go through that is that initial questionnaire.